to be sharing the stage this year and might actually take the lead from me as we move forward this year. His name is Nick Leshke, and Nick, take it away. Introduce yourself, please.
Sure. Good morning, all. I am Nick Leshke, and I am with Georgetown Living, your local family-owned and operated certified Alzheimer's community, home health, and hospice company. It's a pleasure to be here. Honored to be sharing the stage with Anthony.
I had the great opportunity to sit down over a cup of coffee and meet with Nick. And I mean, just a genuine, nice guy. Y'all are going to enjoy him very, very much this year. So welcome, Nick. Thank you so much for joining us. We couldn't go much further without introducing our platinum members. So I'd like to do that. Cook Walden Davis Funeral Home, City of Georgetown, Georgetown Behavioral Health Institute, Lorem Technologies, formerly known as Georgetown Rail Equipment Company, Radiation Detection Company, and St. David's Georgetown Hospital, and the Wesleyan. Nicholas, could you introduce our ambassadors, please?
Indeed, the Chamber couldn't do what they do without all of our ambassadors. Since we are not together, and you can stand up if you'd want, but since we're on Zoom, why don't we all wave or do a little emoji? Thank you, fellow ambassadors.
Excellent. And how about our attendee introductions? I might be very difficult today, but Nick, do you think we give them a little time to just introduce themselves and where they're from?
Jim's head is about to fall off, so I'll take that as a not today.
Okay. Well, with that, then we really need to honor our sponsor. Our sponsor today is Simple Sparrow Care Farm. Jamie is with us today. And Jamie, if you'd like to say a few words.
Yes, good morning. Can everybody hear me out there? Hopefully. I'm
loud and clear.
Great. Well, I'm coming to you live from Simple Sparrow Care Farm's greenhouse. We are a 501c3 nonprofit operating in a hole between Georgetown and Hutto. This started off as a hobby farm for my husband and 4 children and I, and it grew from there. We bought the farm about 10 years ago. You can hear, I opened the door to the greenhouse. Everybody can hear the life that's out there. What we found really early on is that animals and gardening are very therapeutic for a lot of people, especially people suffering from complex PTSD and PTSD. But just for every average day people who might not have any mental illness, farming and gardening is just really good for your body. It's good exercise. It's good for your brain. It's good to just unwind from the stress. And what we did for 2020 is added some COVID savvy programs and services. We've been hosting therapists out here for a number of years. We opened up the farm during the pandemic so people could do social distancing, mental health days with families. We called those the private farm visits. And it really just gave more people in the community a chance to experience the care farm, to learn about our classes and other services that we offer. How we define a care farm is a way that we can utilize farms and gardens for therapeutic and educational services. So this model is actually globally known. I work with a lot of people internationally, particularly in the UK, Australia, New Zealand. It's a pretty normal thing to come across a care farm or a social farm garden situation to help with different kinds of mental illness, to help with different kinds of health and well-being ideas. Prior to COVID, we were going to schools giving presentations just on how we can care for the earth, for lands and gardens and each other. So that's kind of the big thing with the care farm is we're giving people the tools to learn these care principles. We're giving them space and opportunity to practice. And for everybody out there that is in this meeting, I'm actually gonna put a code for y'all. You can sign up for a free private farm visit with this code. And then I'm gonna just quick turn the video around so y'all can see the farm and visit virtually today for just another minute before my time is up. All right, so if you go to our website, simplesparrow.farm, and under our programs, you're gonna see private farm visit. And that code, G-Town Chamber, is gonna take 100% off of that visit for you. So you can all come and check us out. I'm gonna turn this video around and everybody's gonna sing to you because it's feeding time. I'm gonna come out from hiding in the greenhouse here. All right. A lot of our animals were donated. These pot-bellied pigs were donated from a petting zoo that had to close. Sometimes also people get pets that they think are a great idea. Like this little girl, this is Petunia. She ended up being a little bit more of a handful in a suburban home. How many of y'all out there want to admit that you got a pet during the COVID era? That's what Petunia is. You can see she's walking alongside me. She's a little friend. Back there at the hay bale, we do have a llama. That's that big guy sticking his head down. He's kind of famous for being extra grumpy. That mini horse was donated. Here's our sheep.
Looks like we may have lost Jamie. Let's give her a second to see if she comes back. But folks, if you haven't been to their website, it is absolutely awesome. There's videos, there's some really great.
I'm gonna stop here. It'll get pretty loud, but thanks so much for your time, and hope to see y'all out here at Simple Sparrow.
Thank you so much, Jamie. I was just talking about your website and how when you open it, it says learn and grow and heal. Just couldn't say enough about that, because the outdoors, farming and being with nature is a great way to do just that. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Nicholas, who's going to introduce our speakers. And Nick, take it away.
We are fortunate to have not one, but two speakers this morning, and they don't need much of an introduction as they are both pillars of the Georgetown community. Our first speaker this morning was elected and sworn in as our new mayor last November. He grew up in Taylor, Texas, received both his undergraduate and JD from the University of Texas. He served on a long list of nonprofit and city boards, including the Caring Place, Georgetown Development Alliance, Partners in Education, and the 2030 Comprehensive Plan Steering Committee. He has been married to his wife, Ashley, of 17 years, and they have 3 children in the Georgetown Independent School District. He is also a lawyer and shareholder at Sneed, Vine, and Perry. Our second speaker this morning has served as our city manager since his appointment in May of 2015. He received his bachelor's degree from Austin College and his master's degree in public administration from Texas Tech. He serves as a member of the Austin Area Research Organization. He is the regional president for the Texas City Management Association, and he has been married to his college sweetheart, Leticia. Their oldest son is studying engineering at Texas A&M, and their second son is a senior at Georgetown High School. Without further ado, please welcome both Mayor Josh Schrader and City Manager David Morgan.
I think, Josh, you
got folks, I'll lead us off here. This is Josh. Thank you guys all so much for logging in this morning. Always a new deal with the COVID. We're proud of you guys. I'm going to lean on David Morgan a bunch on this because he knows all of the facts. But looking forward to this and having a good dialogue with you guys this morning. Go ahead, David.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got a couple things we're going to talk about today, of course, and we've already been talking about it so far this morning, and we'll probably be talking about it throughout 2021, which is COVID-19 and how we have worked through the pandemic and what are the next steps. We're going to talk about the other thing that when you're talking about just the status of where Georgetown is, it is the common theme, which is seeing growth and managing growth. And we'll talk about our downtown economic development, our financial position, specifically some of the things we're addressing in our utilities area, as well as one of the things that's on top of everyone's mind, as well as transportation. And then we will have a Q&A at the end. And so make sure that you gather those questions, and we look forward to hitting that Q&A here at the end. But first, we're going to talk about, of course, COVID.
All right, I think I'm taking this one back over. So, yeah, obviously, COVID is the topic of conversation, and it is what guided most of the city's work through 2020, and kind of the key principles that the city had to follow through 2020 were flexibility, patience, and then trying to provide as much leadership as possible during this difficult time. And I know that all of you probably experienced that and tried to work through those same issues through your businesses and in your personal lives. COVID hit in March of 2020, and the year that we thought we were going to have became a very, very different year. The initial response to COVID was put together as quickly as possible, but from the city side, one of the things they had to do was pivot off of, we had budgets planned out. We had a plan of work for 2020. And like all of you, we had to shift and adjust and get done everything that we could in the midst of this pandemic. 2021 is hopefully going to be a much better year for us in terms of the pandemic. The vaccine is coming. There's going to be some major announcements tomorrow from the county out at Sun City about vaccine timing and the rollout. The city is kind of taking the back seat on that, and we'll discuss why that is in more detail later. But your state and county are kind of leading the charge on administering the vaccine along with private providers. But I can tell you that your city staff and elected officials through 2020 did a great job of addressing the COVID issues. Your city is in a gruel footing right now. We kept predicting that things were going to go badly during 2020, and the economic news just kept shocking us at how blessed we are to be here in Georgetown, Texas. And we expect that to continue through 2021. Sales tax revenue was up all year last year, defying all predictions. We hope that that's going to continue. Development numbers, as you're going to see, continued to defy COVID. People kept coming here. People kept building here, and so that blessing is also going to be our greatest challenge as we manage that growth. And we're already off to a good start for 2021 as well. So again, the theme is going to be flexibility and addressing these issues as they hit us, and planning, but then planning to pivot off of those plans. So I'm going to pass it over to David now to talk more in depth about COVID-19.
So thank you, Mayor. So, as the Mayor indicated, I think flexibility has been the key for everyone. And we've worked to change our services as we've needed to make sure that we can continue providing service. Right now, one of those examples is we have curbside pickup at our library, but we've done a lot of different things throughout the year, including when the rec center was closed down, that we actually pivoted and had our rec center staff operate a daycare facility for our employees who needed to be, out in the field providing services. So we've done quite a bit of things this year to try and make sure that we're providing as many services as possible. That includes in our development area as well. So an example of that is we did over 75,000 inspections for new homes and businesses this in 2020, where in 2019 we did a little under 62,000. So you can see here that we continue to see growth, and we made sure that despite the challenges of the pandemic, that we didn't allow for those kind of services to be an issue. We also then worked to add resources as quickly as possible. And so to compliment the chamber and our city team for moving forward and providing a grant program for small business quickly. Thankfully, the CARES Act provided significant funding and allowed for a larger infusion to be made through the county. And I know they're looking at an additional support because they still have money through the CARES Act. And then we also have utility bill assistance, and this is going to be going on throughout the pandemic. We dedicated $1 million for water and electric utility assistance for residential customers. And then our firefighters, while we have been in the support role, we've definitely been active supporting, working with our health district in the county in terms of providing testing for nursing homes. And I believe we'll be involved in making sure that we support the vaccine implementation as well. And then we want to make sure we connect. We have a very strong community. And so we provided the Georgetown Cares campaign. You'll see banners go all over the place, Poppy Strong. And so it's just a way in which we can express our support for our community and pull us together throughout the pandemic.
All right, so obviously COVID-19 didn't go away with New Year's Eve. We're still facing it. We're not out of the woods on it. So that's going to impact how we move forward in 2021. And from a purely health and safety perspective, what I can tell you is that the city is, like every level of government, trying to walk this very fine line between keeping everyone healthy and safe and trying to not cause a shutdown of our global economy. And it's hard to do, just to be real blunt, to walk that line. But I can tell you that, as with a lot of things here in Georgetown, Texas, I think we've done a very good job of that. And a lot of that is because of our business community and our community in general. I think we've been able to walk that fine line between, asking people to take reasonable precautions without having to, do too much of the shutdown of businesses and events. Obviously, some of that has happened. Some of that will happen. We don't know what's going to happen with things like Red Poppy Festival and the other wonderful community events. We're going to try to make as many of those things can happen and maybe in different ways this year. But you realize we're going to be dealing with the virus and the vaccine rollout, and we don't know how that's going to go right now. So we're going to have to be flexible. We're going to ask you to be flexible, but just realize that we understand that we have to walk that fine line, and you're not going to see us making crazy shutdown orders, but you're also not going to see us telling everybody, go do whatever you want to do. We're going to ask you to be reasonable human beings and take the proper precautions and be patient with us. And we'll try to do the same for you as we move forward with this. So now let's move on to a more uplifting topic. And David's going to talk about growth in our community.
Well, that is one constant, despite pandemic or not, that we're continuing to see a significant growth. You can see here on this slide that you can see our water utility accounts. And just a reminder, our water utility accounts go beyond the city limits of Georgetown. But we continue to be one of the fastest growing cities, not only in this area, but also in the entire country. I think we're hitting our 5th year in a row for being one of the top 10 fastest growing cities in the country, over 50,000 in population. And I'm going to scare some of you, I'm sorry in advance, but the Central Texas Council of Governments anticipates that our Williamson County population will be 1.4 million by 2045. So 195% growth. And you're like, well, why are we growing so fast compared to everyone else? Well, no, we're growing actually as fast as everyone else in this region. This region's growing at the same clip. And we're seeing that just in this year's activity in terms of development. We're going to see it, we believe, in 2021 as well. And so if you look at last year at our number of housing starts in Georgetown, we were at almost 1,900 housing starts. which is by far a record for us. The previous year was a record year at 1,300 housing starts. And the year before that was a record year around 1,200 housing starts. And we are on pace to probably break that for this year. So just to give you some numbers for the first quarter of our fiscal year 2021. So the first 3 months, we've logged more than 682 housing starts. And to give you some comparison, that's more than what we saw in the entire year in 2014, 2015, and 2016. And so that's you can see a significant growth that we're continuing to see. So how does this impact us? Obviously, probably if I were to poll you, you would all have your own opinions. I bet you half of you or more would say, I see it on the roads, and we're working on that. We'll talk about that, right? But we see it in all different parts of our service areas. So if you look at utility customers, we added around 5,000 utility customers last year. And again, that's not only City of Georgetown, that goes outside outside of our city limits, as well into some other cities like in Leander and Liberty Hill and to the north. We also saw, just to give you some points of perspective, in 2020 we had 10,745 calls for fire EMS service. You look in 2016, we had 8,600 calls for service. Police calls for service increased by 42% since fiscal year 2016. And so you're going to see, one of the things you're going to see on the horizon related to growth is that as the census numbers come out for this spring, we're currently sitting at approximately 70,000 in population. We'll get the official numbers from the 2020 census here this spring, and then we'll start redistricting process. So they're doing it at the state level, but we will be doing it at the local level. All of our council members, or 7 council members, are single member districts. And so we'll be going through that redistricting process, and you'll see how the different growth patterns in the city shift council districts based on that.
All right, so the question is, how do we continue to grow and maintain the same level of service that the Georgetown community expects, and maintain that small town charm that made us all choose Georgetown as our home? In my mind, the first and foremost, and the foundation to it is public safety. Without public safety, you don't get that small town charm. You don't get that same level of service in the community that you expect. And in Georgetown, Texas, we are continuing to support our fire, EMS, and police, and to support them financially. We're opening 2 new fire stations, fire stations 6 and 7 on the east and west sides of town, and adding 10 new staff members to the fire EMS department. And you're going to see that in the form of, just a safer community. We also added 2 new patrol positions with our police department. That's one thing that, we feel like there's a direct impact on safety. The more folks we can have out there in the community patrolling and deterring crime, the better you feel as a community. We've also expanded our police training facility. Any of you that have gone through Leadership Georgetown have toured that facility, and it was just that people from all over the world recognize and come to train and to see how to build their own facilities like ours. And then I just want to really, really applaud Chief Nero for his community initiative. It's something that he has envisioned and to his credit, started working on long before we saw, some of the unrest that we experienced throughout the entire country last year. Chief Nero has reached out to stakeholders in the community and pulled people together to have a conversation between the community and the police department, so to avoid seen in other cities. And I think that that's been a very productive conversation that they've had. Chief Nero led our MLK Day celebration yesterday and hosted folks out at the training facility to do that. And it's just a great progress and movement that we're seeing in that area, and applaud him for that. Development resources. So obviously we've got tons of development occurring in this community, and that development does not occur if your city does not service that development. And so this is going to sound crazy, but we're adding 8 new positions to help manage that growth in development in the city. We could probably add more positions if we could find people to fill them. But the development economy is just booming so much around Central Texas. It's really just hard to find people to fill those positions. But adding these positions is going to help folks walk through the development process in a more efficient manner and maintain those high standards that we all want here in Georgetown. You're going to see some really, really significant stuff happen in terms of development in this community and our regulation of development in this community. First and foremost is a discussion that is occurring right now about traffic impact fees. And we're going to address that question of does new growth pay for itself? And traffic impact fees are one way that we're going to hopefully make sure that the folks that are already here aren't bearing the burden of that new growth. We're looking at some public improvement districts that will also allow folks to add amenities as part of their developments that all of us in the community can take advantage of. We went through about a 2-year process coming up with our 2030 comprehensive plan. And I think we've got a good document there that was a document that this community helped us create. And we're going to try to follow through on that plan and implement it. And so I'll turn it back. Oh, no, I'm sorry. We're staying with me. Next slide, though, David. Utilities. So this is another part of that development growth is making sure that not just our roads, but our utilities keep up with our growth, and that we make sure all new growth is, so, when that development occurs, they put in the water, wastewater, electricity, and then they turn that over to the city. And what we want to make sure is that we're getting, as a city, as a community, we're getting assets. We're not getting liabilities. And there's no question that we're going to have to, maintain, repair utilities as they get turned over to us. But we want to make sure that as development is occurring, that it's actually a net positive to this community when we take over those things. And so you'll see us raising our standards in terms of water and wastewater utilities, and also with hazardous waste as well. So, sorry. I bumped out on. Okay, David, I think I'm turning it back over to you.
Sure. So,
oh, no, I'm sorry, David. I apologize. I got the
you can tell we practice this a lot. So,
absolutely. We have coordinated this down to the second. So we have coming up, we have the mobility bond will be on your May 1 election. That bond, it was discussed last Tuesday at council. And we went from a proposed $50 million bond, and the mobility bond committee looked at that, and we need about projects just to keep up from a transportation standpoint. Council is looking at that, trying to winnow down which projects they want to put before you, the voters, to decide whether or not we're willing to fund that transportation growth and make sure that we're keeping up. And traffic is one of those pressure points of growth, and are we willing to pay the money to relieve that pressure point? So keep an eye on that as that transportation bond continues to move forward. Let's see. We also had investment in our sidewalks downtown. We've seen a bunch of murals done. And coming up in 2021, you're going to see the South San Gabriel River Trail at Wolf Crossing. That's another, we're committed to not just, things like roads and utilities, but we want to make sure that our natural amenities, that folks can take advantage of that. So our park system and trail system is going to be something that we focus on as well. And so we want you to kind of stay involved in that and participate as you see us looking for feedback from you as to how we should invest your funds. The last topic I have for right now is downtown. Next slide, David. We've had over $3.1 million invested in downtown already in the quarter of fiscal year 2021. You've seen Tejas Meat Market open, Mickey's Tacos, District 6, another restaurant is opening soon, as is City Post, and then Foundry 42, which is a retail establishment. One of the things that you'll see us emphasize is getting a great mix of uses in the downtown area. We want to have an economy that is booming from early in the morning until later in the evening, so folks can take advantage of all the different things we have to offer downtown. And so you'll see us, trying to encourage all those different uses coexisting at the same time and feeding off each other. But it appears to be working when we got this much money invested in. And I want to say, what's important here is these dollars are being invested preserving these historic resources that we have downtown. These buildings don't fix themselves. And so it takes a booming downtown economy to preserve these wonderful old buildings and this downtown area. All right, I'll turn it back over to David.
Well, as the mayor indicated, we were seeing some significant growth in 2021 already in downtown. But despite the pandemic, we saw growth in 2020, surprisingly. And so we saw $3.3 million worth of investment in downtown. New businesses last year include places like the Bake Bear, To Have and to Hold, Cork Wine Bar, Watkins Insurance, which I actually call Web Tower. That's what I refer to Watkins Insurance as. Mango Tango, Karina's Bridal Shop, Primadora, Fuego, Latino Gastro Pub, Black Sugar Cafe, Golden Rule, Wag Heaven, and then the Lamppost Coffee expansion. So you can see a number of things that are happening in downtown. It continues to be kind of our crown jewel and what separates us from a lot of other places. And so you're going to see us continue to make investments and look at ways in which we can allow for our downtown to really speak for the kind of small town charm that we all know and love. In terms of economic development, we saw last year $68 million worth of development overall and 700 new jobs. A significant number of projects that went officially online that have had a positive impact for our local economy. You can see here Texas Speed, that's a retention and expansion project. And we partnered with Titan Development, that's currently under construction. Citigroup, we worked on an incentive agreement that caused their facility to grow in terms of usage. Costco announced they're coming to Georgetown. I don't know when. I know that's a common question, so I'll get that question out of the way right now, which is Costco told us that if you want to tell people about the timing of when Costco's going to open, tell them just to drive by the site every once in a while and see what the progress is like. So that's the best we're going to be able to tell you, at least at this point. We also saw a Champion Site Prep brought 200 jobs back into Georgetown. CV Linens is a distribution warehouse that purchased property near Longhorn Junction off of the Southeast Inner Loop. Ascension Seton purchased land in the Wolf Lakes development for a medical office complex. T. Morales is relocating offices and building new headquarters in Georgetown. And then a number of other projects that are definitely worth mentioning. River Place, Heritage Court, those are both in the downtown area. The Watkins Building, or Web Tower, as I like to say it. The Palace Theater, Smith Education Building opened. Cedric Crossings opened its first businesses off of Williams Drive, or first buildings. Holt Cat opened, and an academy opened. So number of things that have happened in 2020. We look forward to also 2021, which the mayor is going to cover.
Yeah, and really just want to congratulate David and Michaela Dollar and her team for all that they've done on economic development. We are obviously blessed to be living where we're living and seeing people come here. Every time you open up the Austin Business Journal or any other news site, you see another company moving from California to Texas. And what I tell people all the time is, for every those that makes the front page, there's 5 to 10 other companies that are following that company here. And even if we don't land that front page company that's moving here, a Tesla or someone like that, there's 5 to 10 other companies that are following that we can go and pick and choose the best and best fits for our community. And I think we're going to see more and more of that occur in 2021. That Titan North Park that David mentioned is really, really important component of that. Those guys have come in with a Class A industrial park, light industrial. And, you know, we've got an opportunity now where we will have space on the ground for these companies that are relocating and relocating quickly to have a place to land. And, you know, we feel like our community is obviously, we've chosen it. It's the best option for everybody, but we're going to get to go and pick and choose which of those companies that we want to partner with and bring in here. And you'll see that, you know, Titan has a $15 million capital investment that they've made into the airport road. They've got $28 million they're going to invest in phase 1 of their project. And they're going to end up with about 300,000 square feet just in phase 1. I believe that project can go up to 1.5 million square feet, something along those lines that they could end up building there. And that's a great project where they partnered with Texas Speed, a local company, and then all of them partnered with the city to make that project happen. Champion Site Prep, a long time member of this community. We were able to retain them. They had an opportunity to go up north and leave our city limits, and we worked with them to find a way to keep them in the Georgetown community, and that's going to be a win-win for both of us. Texas Outdoor Power, again, just a great pillar of the community, company that's been here for a long time. They're constructing a new 225,000 square foot building and have space for another building there. But one of the issues that we're going to be really focused on and working on in 2021 and going forward is spreading out our retail and commercial development throughout the city. As any of you know that spending any time on the southeast side of the city, is we need to get some retail and commercial moving over there. And so we're working very hard on that. You know, if we can spread commercial and retail opportunities throughout the city, that improves our traffic flows and just really builds up the entire community. So when you see things like our traffic impact fee study and looking at commercial development on the southeast side, you know, we want to partner with y'all if y'all have great ideas and opportunities for us that the city's really going to emphasize going forward. All right, David.
Thank you, Mayor. So, there are some people that have actually talked to us about when we have announcements on different businesses. And I know I'm preaching to the choir at the chamber here, but when they hear announcements of different businesses coming to Georgetown, they're like, why do y'all doing that? It's just adding traffic to our roads. And I'm going to connect some dots right here on this slide. So what's critical for us, not only in terms of bringing local jobs to Georgetown, it provides wealth opportunities for people within Georgetown, our residents, but also it strengthens the overall financial position of the city and lowers the tax burden on residents. So the stronger our commercial tax base is, the more that it can help pay for the services that we have in our local community. And we've seen, while we've seen across the country a lot of challenges with different governmental entities having challenges with their finances due to the pandemic, we've surprisingly, we were prepared for that. We were prepared for a slowdown in our sales tax, which was our largest revenue source, to slow down in other revenue sources. Although we did see that in hotel motel tax dollars. Unfortunately, our local hospitality industry has been significantly impacted. But from our larger revenue sources, we've seen actual growth. And so we anticipated last year to have a 6.5% growth in our budget from year over year. And we actually surpassed that 6.5% by another 7%. So we saw significant growth in sales tax. And so if you look at overall, we had an increase of 15.2% in sales tax from one year to the next. Development related growth exceeded our budget by 46%. So we were anticipating some pretty conservative numbers, anticipating that the development activity could slow down, and that did not at all. And so our general fund exceeded our reserves by $7.5 million. And all our funds ended below budget from an expense standpoint. And so we're continuing to have a conservative forecasting as we look towards the future, but we're seeing strong signs of where we are. We also track, one of the things that it's important to note is we track our cost of service for our average resident. So we look at the average tax bill, we look at your average electric bill, water bill, sanitation fee, all our different fees that an average resident pays. We look at that for all the major cities across Central Texas, and we're the third lowest from a cost standpoint in Central Texas. That's important to us because we want to be a good value for the dollars that are provided to provide the services for us. And then also, we continue to have a very strong credit rating. So we have a AA+ credit rating for our general obligation bonds in our general fund. That there's only one other step to go, and that's AAA. And our hope is we can get there at some point in the future as our city grows. And then our utilities, which is combined electric and water utility credit rating, is a AA-, which is very strong in the industry as well.
All right, so moving forward, our budget for fiscal year 21, we are already in that budget cycle. We actually had a $396 million budget, which is 10% lower than our fiscal year 2020 budget. We actually, your council, prior to me getting on there, I want to give them credit for it, actually lowered your tax rate last year. And we actually saw a small dip in our assessed property values. And so the average taxpayer in Georgetown paid about $35 less in taxes this year than they will or than they did the prior year. And so that's again why that sales tax number becomes so important. I tell people all the time, you can go develop, 1,000 houses on a couple hundred acres of land, or a 5-acre tract with a quality commercial business revenue off that commercial business than you tax. So you can see so hard to emphasize retail and commercial development. Our sales tax revenue just in October and November was about $6.3 million. That's 12% higher than it was at the same time last year. And so to see that continued growth is really, really encouraging. Now, I will say that, we're still trying to be conservative. We don't know what's going to happen with the pandemic. And, we had a lot of new growth in businesses that led to a lot of that sales tax revenue. But one thing too that we really want to emphasize is making sure that our local businesses are thriving and flourishing. We don't want, like me, I'm sure y'all spent most of 2020 opening Amazon packages, but we don't want all of our sales tax revenue coming from Amazon. We want that money invested in the businesses in our community, the folks that are on this call. That's where we want our sales tax revenue generated. And so there's always going to be an emphasis on making that happen. Real quick, we went through probably the longest municipal campaign in history, myself included in that. And you have a new mayor, Nate. You have a new council member, Sean Hood, for District 2, and then Ms. John Rowe returned in her race as well. And I can tell you that every single one of us is working every day to make sure that we're able to provide the highest level of service at the lowest cost to you. That is a goal that your entire council shares. And so we're rolling out a public dashboard later this year where you'll be able to track that in a very detailed, methodical way, just to make sure that we're living up to the promises that we made to you. All right, back over to David.
So I want to transition to our utilities a little bit and talk about first the electric utility. So you had to have been living under a rock if you've not heard about our electric utility over the last couple of years, and you've heard about some of our challenges that we've had from a financial perspective. We did have to increase rates, our power cost adjustment in 2019. We've been working diligently to lower our rates and to improve our operational performance. So we've done a number of things in order to be able to get that done, including restructuring from a staff perspective, hiring a new general manager of electric then we've also adopted and updated our risk management policies. We changed our advisory board structure to where we have an electric board and now a water advisory board, with a specific experience in the industry. We hired Shell Energy Corporation to be able to manage our energy portfolio, which has provided a higher level of management in a very complex environment. We sold assets like that aren't necessary for us and from our operational perspective, and then we also overall lowered operational costs. So what is this? All this effort meant basically in 2000 was we ended 2018. We had a fund balance or reserve level of about 1.9 million, which is a lot lower than what we were supposed to have in our electric utility. And now I'm pleased to say through all these efforts and through our PCA adjustment, we were able to have an ending reserve of 28.4 million by the end of 2020. And as a result, we've been able to make some good changes in the electric area. We also are working diligently on the water side, and so you've seen some restructuring go there as well. And then we're very focused on being able to increase with all the growth that we've seen, we also need to make sure that during our peak time, so that's about 6 weeks of the year in the summer when everybody's ready to put as much water as possible on their yards in order to keep it green, we need to make sure that we can keep up with that demand. And so we are working very hard to increase our treatment capacity. You're seeing us do that through a number of different projects that are here on the screen, and also increasing our wastewater capacity. So you want to make sure that that is handled as well. When it's not handled well, people are going to know really quick. And so we want to make sure that we're making those investments. We're also looking to evaluate new water resources. So one of the things that I hear quite a bit is we're running out of water, let's stop growing. We are not running out of water. Our challenge and more immediately is water treatment capacity during our peak times. We do have water into the 2040s, but we definitely need to start planning for the growth that we're seeing today and in the future. And so we're evaluating new water resources as well. I think, Mayor, I'm here for you. There you go.
Sounds good. So yeah, so David and staff were kind enough to let me make this announcement, even though I don't deserve any credit for this because this is all the work they did prior to me getting elected. But we have actually lowered your electric rate through a lot of hard work by the staff and David and our new electric utility manager. We're able to lower the PCA in January. That will look like about $10 a month on your bill that we were able to lower it. But we are hoping that we're going to have an additional opportunity to lower that rate as two of our worst energy contracts expire in 2021, and we're able to renegotiate and hopefully get better new contracts to lower that electric rate one more time. Like David said, in terms of water and wastewater, the biggest investment you're going to see from the community is that we're going to put $22.5 million into a new North Lake water treatment plant expansion. And we're in the process of designing a new South Lake water treatment plant. And as David said, we can have all the water in the world, but if we can't treat it and get it to your house, it doesn't really do us any good. And so we're investing in that because we know that that's, again, one of those growth pressure points that we need to relieve. And folks want to water the lawn, and we're going to make an investment as a community that will allow you to do that. And then we've also got another about $2.65 million that we're going to be investing in capital projects on our wastewater infrastructure as well. All right, Devin.
So as I indicated, want to reinforce, we have enough water, access to water. I think that the challenge we have is making sure we treat it, have enough daily capacity. This is showing you our maximum production and the average outdoor usage. So you can see here during the months really of July and August when we see the most in terms of the daily demand for water across our system. So it's important to kind of have it two-pronged. So we can build more infrastructure, which is important, and you'll see the result of what that means when you build more infrastructure here on the next slide. But we also need to look at ways in which we can conserve water. We've got water rebate programs to make sure you can come out and look at provide efficiency for your irrigation system. And so those things are important. We did do a water rate study over this last year. So the cost of all the additional plants and other treatment that we've been talking about does have an impact on rates. We do have impact fees for water and wastewater. We are able to, in fact, a significant amount of the funding for these new infrastructure projects do come from impact fees. So we had $28 million worth of impact fees over this last year. So you can see here, it's a significant thing that we're having new growth pay for a significant portion. But there did need to be an impact on the water rates. And so we had, through a cost of service analysis, we increased the base rate by $1.50, and also in different categories increased the tiered rates. We also encourage a stronger conservation rate. So the more that you use, the higher your actually rate is, to encourage people to use less. And then we also impacted our solid waste rates based on a larger transfer station we're constructing, and then also cost increases with our contractor TDS. If you look at your overall bill, you can see here's a breakdown of how your different, this is for the average uses, average tax value. So you can see here how the different rates for services pair up. And then you can see, as I mentioned before, how we rate compared to other cities. We have the lowest tax rate in Central Texas of any of the larger cities. And then you can see here below how our cost of service chart, and we are the third lowest. Cedar Park and Round Rock are below us. And then you can see how it goes from there. I'm going to transition to transportation. I know we've talked about this a little bit before. This is going to be it's been a very active topic over this last year. It'll continue to be an active topic over the next few months. And then the spring, we anticipate that there will be a transportation bond that's put together. The mayor's going to talk about that here in just a second, but we have been on a fast pace to implement 2015 road bond, as well as 2008 bond as well, that related to transportation. So you can see here a number of different things we've done to make improvements. We're currently under construction with the Northwest Boulevard Bridge. We're working to make sure that gets done before the main lanes on Williams Drive over I-35 start getting construction on them. Right now, they're focusing on the access roads. So you can see that happening on I-35, but it's critical for us to get the Northwest Boulevard Bridge done so that not everyone's having to use Williams Drive overpass while it's under construction. And I think, Mayor, you're going to talk about outlook for this next year for transportation.
Sure. So as we said earlier, we've got a mobility bond that we are considering right now. And I want to give a little bit of background on that. When the city council formed the citizen committee to take a look at a 2021 bond, it was right in the heart of the pandemic. And so council's direction to that committee was to look at about $50 million in infrastructure projects. And that committee took a really hard look at what we needed as a community. And they came back to your council and said, look, $50 million is just not going to make enough of an impact on our transportation issues. We've got to look at more projects. And so they have presented about $100 million worth of projects that would be about a 10-year bond program. We may be able to shorten that to 7. We're taking a look at that right now. But there are some major projects on there that any of you that drive around in this community are going to recognize as major needs. Southeast Inner Loop from 29 to 1460 is a huge project. That project alone could have swallowed up almost the entire $50 million that they had originally tasked the committee with looking at. We may be able to skinny that project down a little bit and still complete it in such a way that it provides some relief. Shell Road, Williams Drive from DB Wood to 35, obviously a huge issue for this community. One of the major ones that I hear about every single day. Leander Road from Southwest Bypass to the Norwood. And then we've also got money in there for sidewalks, bikes, intersections, and another key one is updating our technology so that we can synchronize lights and things like that will allow us to move better on our existing infrastructure. We talked about the mobility bond, like I said, last Tuesday at council. We'll talk about it again next Tuesday. And then the goal is to try to put together a complete bond package in February to put before the citizens in the May election. But while that is going on, just realize that we're still working on projects from our 2008 bond that money is being spent wisely on DB Wood, 1460, 29, and 971. We've got a few projects left over from the 2015 bond, Leander Road, Northwest Boulevard that David talked about. So you're going to see us continue to spend the money that you've authorized us to spend wisely. And I want to be real upfront with the community and say, hey, we talked about earlier, we have the lowest tax rate in Central Texas. And that is great and wonderful, but just realize that, as we start talking about spending $100 million on roads, that money's not free. And so the community is going to have to take a really hard look at our tax rate, at our bond rate, and decide what we want to do and whether we're willing to make that investment into our infrastructure. But one other way that we're going to address our transportation issues is through this transportation impact fee that we talked about earlier. So this is a really complicated system that follows state law, where we're able to go in and divide up the city into a bunch of different sectors and take a really hard look at where we're at currently in terms of transportation in those areas, and what new growth is going to demand that we add to those areas in terms of roads, sidewalks, and things like that. And then we're able to assess a fee to all new growth to make sure that new growth is paying for itself. We've done this in a much more limited capacity over the last 20 years. But we honestly just have not collected a ton of money in the format that we were using. And so we're doing what a lot of other cities have done and taking a hard look at this traffic impact fee. And one thing that I want to encourage this community is that I will tell you that in other communities, this discussion has not been a happy one. There's been a lot of yelling and screaming between the development community, the business community, folks that are tired of seeing growth. And it's turned into this, this really ugly scene. And that's not going to happen in Georgetown, Texas. Your city has been working very closely with the development community and the business community from day one in this discussion. And while, there may be disagreements or different points of view on how things end up, I can promise you that it's going to be done in a civil manner, and it's going to be in a manner that everyone is working towards what is best for the city of Georgetown and its future. And so, you're going to see the results of those dollars as we work on these other projects that won't have to come from bond, won't have to come from our general fund, that hopefully these transportation impact fees can help fund some of the needs that we have in the community. All right, David.
So if you didn't get enough of us this morning, you have a chance to hear more. So we're doing a broader State of the City address on January 28th with door prizes. So we're going to get into a little more detail on certain topics. And the door prizes include things like an annual pass to Gary Park, or an annual family pass to the rec center, city swag bag. I cannot wait to see what that is. I have no idea what that is, but I'm sure it's going to be great. So join us if you want to get more. And we appreciate you listening today to us, and look forward to the Q&A. Mayor?
Yeah, and I just echo David's, we really appreciate this chamber for its leadership through 2020 and continue to work very closely with all of you through 2021. And, hope that we can work together to make Georgetown that place that we all love. And the chamber is a key to that. You are key to that. Your participation in the chamber is something that we rely on, and your feedback to us. So, hey, we're ready to open this thing up and take some questions and see what you can throw at us. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. I've been getting some questions, so I will kind of spitfire these over to you, David and Josh, and let y'all decide who to answer. The first question came when y'all talked about public safety. There was some questions regarding, is there with more rifling through cars and things that are happening in people's cars in the evening, has the city addressed additional patrols between 11 p.m. and 6 a.m.?
I can address that if you'd like me to, Mayor.
Sure, go ahead, Evan.
Okay. So absolutely, we actually have directed patrols that can work specific issues. So we have seen in the pandemic, we've seen an increase, and we're not the only one. We've seen an increase around the region in terms of burglary of auto vehicles. We see this as actually, in talking with the chief, we see this as an organized effort. So it's not just a random effort, it's an organized effort with teams of people that come into easily accessed neighborhoods. So absolutely, we're working to make sure that we're increasing our different patrols. But I can tell you the biggest way to address these issues is actually residents and making sure. So a large percentage, large percentage of vehicles that are burglarized are vehicles that are not locked. Or the vehicles we've seen stolen are vehicles that have their keys in their car and their vehicle unlocked. And so what they're doing is they're going down the street, quickly opening doors, trying to figure out which ones are unlocked. And if they're unlocked, if there's anything valuable inside, they're getting stolen. So that is, I tell you what, we will make sure that we are doing what we can from a police department perspective and increasing patrols and doing direct patrols where we're seeing specific areas. But the bigger way in which we can address this as a community is to have people lock your doors and don't leave valuables in your car. Those are the two biggest things that we can do to really address this. Don't make yourself an easy target.
Thanks,
Yeah,
David.
David, I heard a number from the county at one point last year that there were 400 break-ins, 398 of them were open vehicles.
Right.
And the two that were actually busted into, both of them had guns sitting on their front seat.
Yes. Yeah. Please don't leave weapons in the vehicle. They will get taken.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mayor. A question that came up is, with the county's color-coded ranges that we're in, how is the city utilizing that data for decisions with opening of library to Red Poppy Festival that takes place in the spring? So it's kind of, maybe it's what data is being utilized or how you're using existing data for some of those decisions that are being out there. And I guess specifically, what's going on with Red Poppy Festival, I think is maybe it's a longer answer to get to that. So.
Well, I can take a portion of this, Mayor, if you want me to. So the health district established the different levels, color-coded. It's unfortunate, but there weren't a lot of other people that were involved in that. So while I think it's fair for the public to be able to see in terms of where we are from a county perspective on the level of infections and new infection, in terms of our response or how we're responding from a service level standpoint, you've seen us make some changes, but more than anything else, we're following the governor's orders. And I think it's important for people to know from an emergency management perspective, the governor has prevented the counties and the cities to do more than what the governor's already done. And so we are in a heightened period right now based on the level of positive cases that we have as a percentage in our hospitals. So that's why we moved to a new restriction level with, for example, in restaurants where there's 50% occupancy now. But that was set by the governor. So we're going to be following those orders. As it relates to Red Poppy Festival, I don't have an answer for you. I can tell you that we are anticipating talking with council about that in the February timeframe. We want to make sure we give some notice to folks because there's obviously businesses on the square, to vendors are preparing for the Red Poppy Festival. What you've seen us do in the past is try to find ways to make it happen, but also to be realistic and to try and make decisions earlier so that people can make adjustments. So I would anticipate if the council indicates that we're just not in a position to hold Red Poppy Festival in April. I would be very surprised if we don't reschedule it and try and still do it in 2021. It's just not going to happen. It would not happen in April. Again, that decision hadn't been made, but we're going to make that decision, I would anticipate, in early February.
Okay. Question, I think earlier you talked about all the great growth in downtown. A couple of our downtown businesses that were on the call were just trying to get an update on parking in downtown. I know that was part of last year's presentation, so just kind of maybe some information on downtown parking.
Maybe this can be a two-parter. I can give you a little bit of history on parking in downtown, and then maybe Mayor, if you want to have any additional comments. But so we worked. So the council initially approved, and we funded a parking garage at basically at 6th and Main Street. That area was chosen initially because that has a limited amount of public parking in that area. And we were also seeing significant growth happening in that quadrant of downtown. So we're concerned about traffic being pushed into the residential neighborhoods and causing nuisance issues there. I can tell you from a code perspective, as well as from a just from a practical perspective, the city's really taken ownership of providing portions of parking in downtown. So we've done that through lowering the parking requirements for businesses in downtown. And we've really taken on that. So we have different public parking spaces. In the downtown master plan, it speaks to parking, and it actually speaks to garages in the future. I would anticipate that just as this is coming up as a question, I would anticipate that that we'll probably, where we left prior to the pandemic was the council wanted to actually do a broader parking study and look at other locations and look at other solutions. And I would anticipate as we're coming out of the pandemic that we probably will be back to that discussion. And I think we need to really make sure that we're balancing the different interests in mind. So downtown is absolutely for residents that live adjacent to downtown, but it's also for our entire community. And that's why parking is so critical.
Yeah, and I would just echo David's comments. I think that's, you know, the way the city views parking in the downtown area is that it's kind of a public utility. We do not want to require on-site parking in our downtown area. That would be a horrible use of square footage in this really dense, great commercial area. We want it to be walkable. We want it to be, you know, a place where you can visit multiple locations in a trip. And to do that, you've got to have public parking. Where that parking is going to be, what it's going to look like. Obviously, the you know, one of the highest priorities is anything that we do has to fit from an aesthetic standpoint into this downtown area. And that's something that everybody agrees on. Now, we may not agree on what it looks like, but we all agree that it needs to, you know, the concept needs to fit so that it doesn't stand out. If you go look at other communities that have been able to pull this off, that are you know, great examples of how, you know, a historic downtown can thrive and still have modern amenities like public parking. Go look at Oxford, Mississippi, go look at Franklin, Tennessee, and you can see where it can happen. This is not something that is impossible, and we've got to work through this as a community, again, without a bunch of hollering and screaming, and come to a compromise that works for all of us. And so I think you're going to see us address that in 2021.
Guys, I'm gonna do one more question. There's been lots from the group today, and so because we're a little over our time limit. Last question is, you know, with the pandemic, mental health has been a hot topic. What is the city doing to address mental health? That's kind of the question, and I'll pass it on to you guys.
I can work on this one if you want me to, Mayor.
Sure.
There's a regional group or a countywide group that works on mental health. It's actually led by Commissioner Covey. We've got different partners in law enforcement that are part of that in our mental health community. And so we're tracking statistics, as well as I know the county's been focused on and actually provided funding for increased beds. So from a county perspective, I think those are steps that are being taken. I know that the new Sheriff Gleason, has reconstituted the crisis intervention team as a part of the Sheriff's Office, which is a countywide resource to be able to help address and respond to issues of severe mental health. But I can tell you, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a theme that is discussed and further evaluated, and hopefully not only just county resources or city resources, but there can be larger resources provided for mental health long term. From a city perspective, locally within our organization, mental health is absolutely, we provide different services for our employees. It's been an ongoing discussion with our employees this year. And I hope all of you that have employees, that it's an ongoing discussion that you're having with folks as well, and that there are resources made available for counseling services or other things to be able to address mental health. But it is going to be a topic that is we don't only talk about through the pandemic, but it should be one that is talked about for pretty much on as a major topic moving forward for the foreseeable future. I do want to answer one other question though, Jim, if you don't mind, that I saw.
You want to answer the golf question, don't you?
I want to answer the golf question. So, and I'll be very short, but you're right. We don't have, I mean, with Sun City moving to private, we don't have access to public golf. I can tell you there's been a huge transition in golf over the years. If this community wants a golf course to be a municipal golf course, what you're going to have to do is assume that the city is going to subsidize a golf course. And so public golf or municipal golf, the large majority of municipal golf courses are subsidized by the city because they cannot happen on their own. And so I would say that, you know, before the city of Georgetown thinks about having a municipal golf course, we really need to make sure we have a good gut check on what the financial responsibility will have to be by the city and the costs associated with that. The golf market's changed quite a bit over the last 30 years, and so I think that's just a realization of what we're going to have to go through something like adding a golf course to Georgetown. It will be like adding a park and having to pay for it because it's not going to be paid for by user fees solely. But I love golf.
I know I left that one left. I couldn't get to Michael Cox's question, but I figured that was one of passion for you, David. So
yeah, was that question sent in by Grant Morgan?
No.
Well, Mayor, City Manager, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate your time. What I will say is you realize very quickly there's like a lot of information there, and even though we spend an hour on it, it is a good conversation, and we appreciate your time. I'm going to remove y'all's spotlights and bring Nick back into the show with me. Oh, there's
hello,
Nick. There you go, Nick. Oh,
yep.
There you are, Nick. Real quick, guys, I'm just going to do a couple chamber announcements because we are coming hot on past our time. Next Wednesday is Lunch and Learn featuring social media topics. Carolyn Cummings will be on the topic, be presenting. She was on the call today. It should be a fantastic Lunch and Learn presentation. And then next Thursday, we'll have the U.S. Chamber doing a Chamber Power Hour. John Gonzalez will be back talking about the new PPP program and post-election expectations. More information to come in the next weeks on the Chamber's Bridal Show, as well as the banquet for 2021. Nick, I'll turn it back over to you and let you close us out.
Great. I'd like to thank you all for coming out this morning. Thank you to Jamie with Simple Sparrow Care Farm for our sponsor presentation. And thank you to Mr. Mayor and Mr. City Manager for a fantastic presentation.